taken me ages to get through the whole of this and do a video on it. I've owned this since October. This, of course, if you can't read, is The Rise and Fall of WCW, which is a WWE released 3-disc DVD with, you know, the usual documentary and assortment of matches. And the documentary just basically, you know, they're trying to sum up WCW in a short amount of time, and it doesn't really work, and they gloss over so many things about like what happened with the business and stuff, and I don't know, the documentary isn't great really. It's good for a little watch, but it's not it. A documentary like that should have been fucking awesome. It should have gone into like all the great feuds that were there, and like all the angles and all the successful like stables and characters, and it should have been more like, I think it should have been more based to do with the wrestlers themselves, to be honest. But of course there was only so much footage of like talking heads they could use, because hardly anyone agreed to like come back for interviews for this. I mean, they used a lot of stock footage from the Monday Night Wars DVD with like Bischoff and DDP and Booker T and all that talking, and Scott Hall, and it's all footage like from years ago. But yeah, the documentary should have been awesome. It should have been the ECW level, I think, and it should have been along those lines, I reckon, just going through a lot of the wrestlers and the angles and talking about classic matches. I mean, that's what I want as a fan of the old WCW. You know, anyone could get like the info on like why it went under and stuff. In fact, the better way to get that kind of info is from this book, The Death of WCW, by R.D. Reynolds of WrestleCrap.com and Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Very good and very detailed book. I read it about a year or two ago. It's probably due another read, really. I mean, if you're like a wrestling historian, kind of into your history, then this is very good. And yeah, I mean, it's good on it, the documentary for this. They got the Crockett's and that. And I'd say the first hour was pretty good, but it's just so much is glossed over in the last 45 minutes, you know. It could have... It should have been like 3 hours. Maybe it should have been like 2 discs worth of footage of like people just going over the angles and stuff, and not glossing over like things like mistakes or like blaming the wrong person or whatever, you know. But yeah, anyway, lots of people have said this in other videos and reviews of it. I'm going to talk more about the matches, which to me is the biggest selling point on this DVD, because the match selection is pretty damn good, I have to say. More so on the second disc than the third disc, because towards the end of the third disc they seem to like put a lot of the worst stuff on there. Yeah, the second disc, I can't pronounce words, I'm sorry. Ric Flair vs Magnum TA, $1,000 challenge match. Very good kind of 10 to 15 minute match, that is. What you'd expect. It's a shame Magnum TA didn't become the star he should have been. Next match was wicked. Sting, Luger and Barry Windham versus Flair, Anderson and Tully Blanchard in a 6-man tag match. And yeah, that was just really awesome. Just a great paced 6-man tag. Just, that is how you have a 6-man tag match. Just look it up. And then there's the United States Championship match between Dusty Rhodes and Barry Windham at the Great American Bash 1988. Really awesome, I think. They had a really good back and forth 20-minute match, and they're both really good workers. I mean, if your vision of Dusty Rhodes was like the polka dot man, watch a match like this, because he was a great worker, and I need to get his DVD set, I think, because, yeah, I'm into Dusty Rhodes. Ric Flair versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Chi-Town Rumble. This is the one where Steamboat wins the title. And yeah, just, it is wrestling. It's wrestling. It's what you should know wrestling as. Any of their matches is just, yeah, wrestling. Brilliant. Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express, Wrestle Raw. Yeah, and again, just brilliant fucking tag team wrestling. You know, you can't really go wrong watching matches between those two teams. And then there's Midnight Express versus the Southern Boys. It was Tracy Smothers, I think. Yeah, and Brad Armstrong. They seemed pretty green, the Southern Boys, but they still had a very good match. Then there's the Steiners versus Sting and Luger at the first Super Brawl. Not very long, about 10 minutes or so, but just a great kind of like big name atmosphere for this time of WCW. And it was a match I've been like waiting to see for years, actually, since I was a kid. Because I never picked up Super Brawl on VHS. But yeah, really good stuff, like nice hard-hitting tag match. Oh, and then there's one of my favourite feuds ever, Sting versus Big Van Vader, at the Great American Bash 92, the one where Vader wins a title. Just brilliant. What more can I say? Rick Rude versus Sting, 1994. A good match, but I thought it could have been better, to be honest. I don't know what it was. I think there might have been some timing issues or whatever. I think they probably had better matches over the US title in 91 or 92 than this match. But yeah, still really good though, because it's Rick Rude and Sting, and when Sting was a nice beach man. And Ric Flair versus Hogan at Bash of the Beach. Hogan's debut match in WCW. Real big marquee moment. They have like Shaquille O'Neal or someone there, and lots of celebs, and real good. And Disc 2 is awesome. I think Disc 2 is worth getting this DVD for. I'll gloss over some of DVD 3. Ric Flair versus the Giant, i.e. the Big Show, i.e. Paul White. That was on Nitro, and it was a textbook way of putting a giant over by Ric Flair. He did a masterful job selling that, and yeah, it wasn't the best match in the world, but it was still good to like see how you can put a giant over like that. Ray versus Dean Malenko, Clash of the Champions 18, sorry. What more can I say? Those two matches in those times were pretty stellar and good. A good War Games match. Team WCW, Sting, Luger, Flair, Anderson versus Team NWO, Hogan, Nash, Scott Hall, and Fake Sting. Yeah, pretty good War Games. Definitely built a lot of tension. Was good. Not the best War Games I've seen, but still good. Ladder match, Sold Out, Six versus Eddie Guerrero, and Sold Out was an NWO based pay-per-view. And this was interesting because when Six was obviously a member of the NWO, but Eddie wasn't. When Eddie came out, and had someone over the PA saying, "Vanilla Midget, Mexican Jumping Bean." And I thought that was really funny. But yeah, if anyone has a link to WCW Sold Out, NWO Sold Out, I'd like to see it. Yeah. Quite a good ladder match. Not the best. I know Eddie wasn't comfortable with it because he read about it in his book, but still good. No DQ match. Eddie versus Dean. Brilliant. Jericho versus Juventud Guerrera. Title versus mass match. Another awesome match. Steiners versus the Outsiders. Not really a great match. More of an angle, really. But still quite an impact. And Dennis Rodman and Hulk Hogan versus DDP and Karl Malone. I just didn't pay much attention to that match whatsoever. Just a bit of a silly kind of Hollywood marquee match. You know, didn't want to see it. Goldberg versus DDP at Halloween Havoc, which is the one where the pay-per-view got cut off and no one saw, and it got showed on Nitro. the next night. I thought it was a brilliant main event, to be honest. I thought it was as good a match as those two could have, and it was really good. I think it's probably quite an underrated match, to be honest. I like it. And it ends with Booker T versus Lance Storm off of a Nitro, which is quite a nice 10-minute kind of match, but not the best ending to this DVD. So overall, I say, if you ever did like WCW and miss it, then it's definitely worth getting for the matches. But if you want some like in-depth stuff about like the company as a whole and what made it tick, then the documentary isn't brilliant. Still worth a watch, but not brilliant. But yeah, there's some thoughts on the rise and fall of WCW. Let me know what you think of any of this. Thank you very much.